Well, in this tutorial, we're going to learn about print function in Python. We already used print function a lot till now, but in this video, we will try to dive deep to understand the full power of print function. And print function is also called output function because it basically prints the output on the output console. Now first let's try to understand what happens when we try to print a single value using print function. This is the kind of syntax we are very much familiar with, right? We used it multiple times. So whenever we want to print a single value, we use print function and we keep the value inside these parentheses. And whatever values we pass to any function, they are actually called arguments. Now in this print function, this argument can be any expression that evaluates to a value. It could evaluate to some integer, or it could be a string, or it could even be something like a list. Now what happens when this instruction is executed? Print function converts this argument value to a string and then displays it on the output console. So doesn't matter what kind of value you give to the print function, it will eventually convert that value to a string and then displays it on the output console. Now let's see these three simple examples. Here we are trying to print this string hello world. This is already a string. So print function will simply print this on the output console. Now if you see the next line, here we are trying to print integer 10. So print function will first convert this integer 10 to a string and then it will display it on the output console. Similarly, if you see the last statement, print of a plus b. So assume a value is 10, b value is 20. So this expression a plus b will become 30. So print function will first convert this integer 30 to a string and then it will display it on the output console. I have created a Python file print_function.py under this project folder Python course, and I have added the examples here. So what we are trying to do here, firstly, as usual, we are trying to print this description message so that it is easy to analyze the output. And then I have created variables a, b, 10, 20. And here I am trying to print the string hello world, then print of 10, then print of a plus b. So let me run this program, right click, run. And this is the output we have. So first it prints this description message. And if you see here, even here we are trying to print a single value, which is this particular string, isn't it? Then we have a, b, 10, 20. Then we are trying to print this string hello world. So we can see hello world here. And in the next line, we are trying to print integer 10. So print function first basically converts this to a string and then displays it. But the point to note here is, when the output is displayed in the console, you will not see single quotes or double quotes. So we use single quotes or double quotes when we specify strings while writing program. But when the output is displayed, we will not see the single quotes or double quotes. But always remember, print function will eventually convert the argument to a string and then displays it. All right. Similarly, in the next line, if you see a plus b is 30, so it converts this 30 to a string and then displays it here. This is pretty straightforward. Now let's see what happens when we try to print multiple values using print function. We used even this kind of syntax multiple times before, right? So what we basically do is we use print of and then we specify whatever values we want to print. And as we know, all these values are called arguments. Argument 1, 2, so on till argument n. Now all these n arguments are some expressions that evaluate to some value. Each argument could be an integer or string or list or whatever. And just like in the case of single value, even here, print function converts all the argument values to strings and then displays them on the output console. And also while printing these n values to the console, print function by default adds a single space between the values. Let's see these examples to understand. Here we have three variables a, b, name with values 10, 20, Sachin. And in the next line we have print of 10, 20, 30. So what will print function do? It will first convert each of these values to respective strings and it will display them with a space separation between these values. Remember, by default, it adds a single space between the values, isn't it? Now if you see the next line, here we are passing two arguments. First argument is this string hello. Second argument is this variable name, which has this value Sachin. Both these values are strings, so it will directly print both these values on the output console with a space separation between them. This kind of syntax is very often used when we want to print some value along with some text or description. And if you see the output, it might seem like a single string, but it is actually not. What print function doing here is, it is simply printing both these values with a space separation between them. But the output is displayed in a way that it appears like a single string, isn't it? Similarly, if you see the next line, here the first argument is this string sum colon, and the second argument is this expression a plus b, which will evaluate to 30. So what will print function do? First it will convert this integer 30 to a string 30, and then it will print both these values on the output console with a space separation. So we can use this kind of syntax to print some value along with some description. Instead of simply printing the values, the output will be much easier to understand when we attach some description to it. And this kind of output can also be achieved by using string concatenation approach. We will see the difference between both the approaches in the next video. Now I have added all those examples as well. So let me run this program, right click, run. So this is the output. And let's look for output under this description message, printing multiple values. So this is the output. As you can see, it prints 10, 20, 30 with a single space in between them. Similarly, it prints hello and the name which has value Sachin with a space between them. And similarly, here it prints sum colon and a plus b is 30. It prints sum colon 30 with a space between them. I hope you followed the tutorial till here. Now we have seen that when we try to print multiple values using comma separation, we have seen print function automatically creates a single space between the values. But what if we want to use a different separator instead of space between these values? Maybe instead of space, you want to use a dash. Can we do that? It turns out we can do that by using something called SCP parameter. SCP is the short form for separator. So by using this parameter, we can control how multiple arguments in a print function are separated in the console output. And the default value is a single space. That's why when we did not specify any parameter, it by default creates a single space between the values. And this SCP parameter is an optional parameter, which means even if you don't provide it, it will not cause any issues. It will by default take this single space. That's why we call this as optional parameter. Now let's take this code snippet. Here we have variables a, b, c with values 10, 20 and 30. So here we are trying to print a, b, c. We are not using any SCP parameter. And we know that if we don't specify anything, by default, it will take a single space. So it will print these values 10, 20, 30 with a single space separation between them. Now if you see the next line, here we are trying to print a, b, c, and we are specifying a SCP parameter with a single space string. So it will print these values 10, 20, 30 with a single space between them. Actually, both these are same because even if we don't specify anything for SCP parameter, it will by default take the single space. That's why both these will give you the same output. Now if you see the next line, here we are trying to print a, b, c, and we are specifying SCP parameter with a string dash or hyphen. So what will print function do? It will print these values a, b, c with this hyphen separation between them. And if you see the last line, here we are using separator as /t. /t is an escape sequence to specify tab space. We'll talk about escape sequences when we discuss about strings in future, but for now remember /t indicates a tab space. So what this will do is it will print these values 10, 20, 30 with a tab space between them instead of a single space. That's how we can use this SCP parameter to specify how to separate different values. So I have added all these examples. Let's verify the outputs. Right click, run. And as you can see, when you don't specify any SCP parameter, it will by default take a single space, which is same as providing SCP is equal to single space string, right? Here also we got a single space. And when we use hyphen or dash, it will print the outputs as 10-20-30. And here when we specify SCP as /t, it will create a tab space between the values. It's very simple, isn't it? Till now you would have observed one thing, that when we try to execute this program, each print statement prints the output in the new line. If you run this program, so if you see from the start, each print statement prints the output in a new line. This string is printed in the first line, then the next output hello world is being printed in the next line, and then this 10 is printed in the next line, and so on. So each print statement is printing the output in the new line. Now let us try to understand why it works that way and how we can change that. Just like SCP parameter, we have another optional parameter called end parameter, which controls what should be appended at the end of the output. By default, the value is /n. /n is an escape sequence for new line. For example, if you take this, here we are trying to print the string hi Sachin /n how are you. So what this will do, /n indicates a new line. So when you try to execute this, we can see that it prints hi Sachin, and then it creates a new line, /n indicates new line, and in the next line it prints how are you. So whenever we use /n anywhere, it indicates a new line. So by default, end parameter will take /n or new line, which means it automatically appends a new line at the end of the output. If you take this code snippet, here we have print of this string Sachin. Here we are not specifying any AND parameter, right? So it will by default take /n, which means it will automatically append a new line at the end of output. So it will print this Sachin and it will append a new line. So it goes to the next line. That's why the next print statement prints the output in the next line. Even here after printing 25, it will create a new line. So it will go here. So the next output will be again printed in the new line. So if we run this code snippet, here we are not specifying any AND parameter. If we run this, we can see that after each output, new line is created. That's why each one of them is being printed in the new line. Now if you see this code snippet, here we are trying to print the same values, but we are using end parameter is equal to hyphen, a string with value hyphen. So what this will do, first print function, it will print Sachin and it will append hyphen at the end of it. So it will print Sachin hyphen. And here it is not creating a new line because we are specifying end is equal to hyphen. So at the end, it will simply append hyphen instead of a new line. That's why the next print statement continues from this point without going to the next line. Again, here we are specifying end is equal to hyphen. So it will print 25 and it will append hyphen after it. And the next output will continue from here. And so the final print statement will print India at this position. And so this will be our final output. And when you don't specify any end parameter, it will by default take this /n value. So it is same as writing end is equal to /n, which means by default it will print the output, and at the end of the output, it will append a new line character. So the next output starts in the new line. Now let's run and see what happens when we have this end is equal to hyphen. So let me run this program, right click, run. And as you can see, in the previous print statements, we did not specify any AND parameter. So it will by default append the new line. So you can see that the next output starts in the new line. Similarly, here it starts in the new line. But here when we specify end is equal to hyphen, it will append this hyphen at the end of the output. So that's why it prints Sachin hyphen and it will not go to the next line. That's why the next output starts at this point and not at the new line, right? So it will also print 25. And again, here we are saying end is equal to hyphen, which means after 25 hyphen is appended. So it will print 25 hyphen. And now the next output starts at this point. That's why India is printed here and not in the new line. Now what if we try to print another statement after this? Let's say we want to print hello world. So here in this print function, we are not passing any end parameter. So it will create a new line. So this hello world will be displayed in the new line. So let me run it and see. So we can see that after India, new line is appended. That's why the next output starts from the new line. So hello world is printed in the new line. But instead, if we have end is equal to hyphen here, so what happens? I believe you guessed it already. Let me run it and show you. So you can see that after India, again hyphen is appended and not the new line. So the next output starts at this point. That's why this hello world is printed in the same line. But if you don't specify anything, after India, a new line character is appended. That's why this hello world will be printed in the new line. Now let's see some examples by combining all the concepts we discussed. Let's see the first example. Here we are trying to print 10, 20, 30. And in the next print statement, we are trying to print strings Sachin, Saurav, Rahul. And in the next line, we are simply printing end of example. In these examples, we are not specifying any value for SCP and end parameters, right? So by default, SCP takes a single space and end will take new line /n. So this statement is same as this. If you don't specify anything, by default, SCP will take single space, end parameter will take new line. So what will be the output in this case? So it will print 10, 20, 30 with a single space separation, correct? And end parameter by default will be /n. So at the end of this output, it will create a new line. So the next output starts at the new line. And what is happening in the next print statement? We are printing Sachin, Saurav, Rahul. And by default, SCP will be space. So it will print these values with a space separation. Again here, end parameter by default will be /n. So new line will be created. So the next output starts in the new line. And here we are simply printing end of example. So it will print it here. So this is the same example we discussed. Let me run this program and show you. Right click, run. And you can see this is the output we got. Now let's see the next example. So here we have 10, 20, 30. SCP parameter has hyphen, end parameter has triple star. So what happens with this print statement? It will print these values with a hyphen separation between them, not single space. And after printing these values, it will append these 3 stars. So what happens is it will print 10-20-30 and it will append 3 stars. The next output starts from here and not the new line. In the next print statement, again we have Sachin, Saurav, Rahul, separator is hyphen and end is 3 stars. As we know, output starts from here. It will print Sachin hyphen Saurav hyphen Rahul and again will append 3 stars here. And the next output starts from this point. That's why the next print statement prints this end of example from this point. I have added this example. Let me run this and show you the output. Right click, run. As you can see, it prints 10-20-30 triple star, Sachin hyphen Saurav hyphen Rahul triple star, end of example. And after this end of example, we did not specify any end parameter, right? So by default, it will be new line. So the next print statement displays the output in the next line. Now let's see the last example. Here we are trying to print 10, 20, 30 and SCP parameter we are specifying it as /n, which is a new line character. So these values will be separated by new line character, which means it will print 10 and then creates a new line and then print 20 and creates a new line and then will print 30. And here we're also specifying end is equal to 3 stars. So after printing these values, it will append these 3 stars. And the next output starts at this position and not at the new line. If you see the next print statement, here we're trying to print Sachin, Saurav, Rahul, and we're specifying SCP is equal to hyphen. So these values will be hyphen separated, right? So it will print Sachin hyphen Saurav hyphen Rahul. And here we did not specify any end parameter. So by default, a new line character is appended at the end of the output. That's why the next output, end of example, will be displayed in the new line. Now let's check the output for this example as well. First, let me run this program, right click, run, and this is the output we have. Let's see what is happening here. So if you see this particular print statement, here we have values 10, 20, 30, and SCP parameter has /n, which means these three values are separated by new line. That's why first it prints 10, creates a new line, so 20 is printed in the next line, again creates a new line, and 30 is printed in the next line. Or you can also think of it this way. So when you have separator as /n, it means these values 10, 20, and 30 are separated by this new line character /n. So what happens when this is printed? First 10 is printed, and then we have /n, so new line is created, and then 20 is printed, and then again we have /n, which means again new line is created, and then 30 is printed, which is exactly what happened here, isn't it? Now we also have end parameter as 3 stars. So this output is appended by 3 stars. That's why it will append these 3 stars here. And the next output will start from this point. So when the next statement is executed, here we have separator as hyphen. So it will print these values Sachin, Saurav, Rahul with a hyphen separation. That's what happened here. Now here we did not specify any end parameter, which means by default new line character is appended. That's why a new line character is appended and the next output starts at the new line. And so the next print statement will print this end of example in the new line. And one thing we have to be careful about when we use these SCP and end parameters is that these have to be specified after writing the values we want to print. Even here, if you see, first we'll have to write the values, then we need to specify the parameters. And these two parameters can be in any order. Instead of SCP first, we can even put end parameter first. But whatever it is, these two parameters should only be there after writing the values. You will understand the reason for this when we discuss about functions in future. With this, we completed the concepts related to print function, and I hope you understood different variations of it. I'll see you in the next tutorial.